So each tasting I'll also be bringing in a little section of tips which I picked up along my many years of working as a sommelier and in the restaurant and tasting wines. This week we're going to be looking at the tasting of the wine, which is going to be really important. It's going to set us up really nicely for the tasting coming up, the Three Kings of Italy. So the wine, the best amount of wine to really try in a glass is probably something like you have. 100 ml each is perfect in a white wine glass like this. If you've got a slightly smaller glass, somewhere towards the widest point near the bottom. What we generally say as wine professionals is let's taste the wine, every wine in the same glass. And then that gives us a level base so we can tell the differences between each wine. After that, you might want to drink your wine in a particular glass which suits the wine. And people say, do these really make a difference, Jim? And yeah, they really do. There's various different reasons for that. Of course, the amount of oxygen which is in contact with the wine reacts with the amino acids in the wine. It brings out flavour compounds. So that's really important. But also where it directs the wine onto your palate is of great value, because you taste fruit flavours, for instance, at the front of your mouth on your tongue. You taste savoury flavours on the side, and different parts of your palate detect different aspects of the wine. So if you've got wine with a narrow top, like this flute, for instance, or this old world Syrah glass here, then this is going to direct it more towards where you pick up the fruit flavours of the wine. When we actually taste the wine, one of the first things they train into us as wine professionals is, do you take out that thing of do you like it or not? This really clouds your judgment. So when we're first tasting the wine, we want to be breaking it down into characteristics. So 4 sort of key areas we're going to look at really when we taste. So acidity. So acidity is really important here because this cuts through a lot of flavours and dishes. It works in really importantly for pairings, but also that it balances the wine. So if you've got flavour in a wine which lasts for a certain amount of time, the acidity should really complement alongside that. And that's when you know the balance of the acidity and the flavours of the wine is just perfect. We taste acidity just right on the back of our tongue. I'm sure you've tasted lemon juice before or pickled ingredients, and you get that acidity down here, almost in your throat is where you're going to taste the wine here. So notice here, I'm tasting one sip for one characteristic of the wine. And this is really a way to break down the different characters of the wine and open up your understanding. And then at the end of the tasting, we're going to pull all those together to make an assessment on quality and conclusion. The tannin of the wine is the next point I'd like to look at. So tannin, we taste this on our gums unusually, or we sense it on our gums, I should say, because tannins are tiny little particles, and we generally see the phenomenon in red grapes, where it's come from the pips and the seeds, and also the skins of the grapes. Here, when I take a sip of the wine, this is probably the most unusual style of tasting. So you want to think about bringing it around our gums, almost like we're tasting mouthwash here. Wow. Okay, now I can pick up the tannin. And before, on the first sip, when I was tasting for acidity, I just had that little tick of acidity on the back, but I didn't pick out these structures, these tannins, which are sinking into the gums here. So we want to be thinking in terms of low, high and medium. This is going to give us a traceable, we can look back on it, accountability for the wine and compare it to different wines. Also, I want to look at the body of the wine. So the body of the wine is really important. You hear people say this word all the time, but what does it mean? Well, think about water. I mean, water is going to be a really light. So if you've got something like a Pinot Grigio or a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, I mean, something's going to seem like it's going to be really light, like watery. That's a light style of wine. That's not a negative thing to say about the wine. Something with big body is going to be thick, it's going to be viscous. So we're thinking viscosity for wine. How does it roll around your tongue? So when we take a sip, think about the weight of the wine. How does it move around your mouth? So here I've got a nice medium bodied wine. It's rolling around nice and smooth. It's not too slow, it's not too heavy, it's not too viscous. And also it's certainly not very light. And finally, the flavour characteristics of the wine. We often hear people talk about them. So fruit flavours are normally what we're looking for. Things like red currants, blackberries, black currants, and anything like that. For a red wine might be associated with it, or for a white wine we look at more green fruit characters and citrus fruit characters. But I also want you to try and think about flavours, secondary flavours. So fruit flavours, we call them primary. Secondary flavours we taste further along the palate, and here we're talking about things like chocolate, we're talking about leather, we're talking about some of those really sort of heavier elements and flavours like coffee you might taste. So if we keep these 4 things in mind: acidity, tannin, body and flavour characteristics when we're tasting the wine, we're going to be able to learn a little bit more about the wine. Now you might say, why, Jim? Why can't I just enjoy this lovely glass of wine? Of course you can. And I don't drink every glass of wine swilling it around my mouth. I think my family would have had enough of me by now if I did. What you will learn by breaking down the characteristics is you'll see trends in wines of which you like, and in acidity and tannin. So it can be really effective for kind of pinpointed wines which you might like in the supermarket or in your local wine merchant before you've even bought them. One more tip I've got for you is if you get the chance, please do buy a book on wine. I mean, pick a book yourself. There's not much better. I mean, you drink a glass of wine, sat down reading a book. Well, why not read about the region that you're drinking the wine from while you're drinking it? And it really adds something extra to the wine experience. Probably the best book and the easiest to read and the one the best on the market is The World Atlas of Wine from Jancis Robinson and Hugh Johnson. So yeah, I really would recommend that. But pick up a book of your choice. They're all generally written by professionals, and it'll really enhance your experience.